Okay, Clash of Sovereigns. Here we are, second half of 1744. Still struggling, still trying to soldier through this thing. But beyond all that, where are we? What has happened? So the French got kind of stymied in their attack on Hanover, so they were unable to get the victory that was just waiting for them. Meanwhile, they're pushing forward towards Antwerp. They will suffer some penalties if they can't take it by next year sometime. I don't remember where exactly. And they managed to retake Vienna. And the move that the Sacs made on Hanover has chased the British over with their allied army, and they're trying to gather everything that they can to face Belle-Ile, who's currently sieging Menin. Don't really have a good chance of facing anything, particularly, but yeah, I mean, the Anglo-Dutch army is not as strong as the French. So commanders are really important, and it's just not got as good a command structure or officers to enable them to really face the French very easily. They do have a bonus in their army rating, but the French army rating has been increased to 4. And we're really in a situation where the French are like just a couple points away from winning the game. The Bourbons are at 15, and 8 is 23. If they had managed to crown Charles as emperor, they would have won last turn. They would also have had more points because they'd have Hanover, and I think the card gives points as well. Now, it is still possible. French morale, yeah, the French would get an extra victory point from this. The Austrians and Brits would lose some, but that's not really too important. The French can still play this as far as I can tell, even though Francis has been crowned emperor, and not all the effects, just the victory point and morale, monarch's will have been put into effect, which means I don't know if Bavaria can actually be forced out of the war anymore by a strict reading of the rules. Maybe that's, another one of them errata that just didn't get worked into all this. But on the other hand, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, to me, it feels like if you meet the requirements for these, you should be able to drive Bavaria out of the war by the stages that you hit here, which means if the Austrians occupy 3 or more Bavarian spaces, Bavaria should probably surrender. There should probably be a rule for that. There isn't one that I'm aware of. I only looked at the rules for this. That makes a lot of Austrian cards useless, ones that would allow them to advance this forward. So in order to get these, you have to play a card and occupy Bavaria. To me, it seems like if you took Bavaria out and the French were unable to support your attempt to claim to be emperor, Bavaria should drop out just as easily as they would otherwise. That is not the case, though, as far as I can see. I don't remember where this was. We looked that up. Let's take another look here. This is the Regaining the Crown track. Just want to make sure that, again, I have to multi-read things just to make sure what's going on. So yeah, it has nothing here about this. And you're not allowed to play those cards to move things across here. Is there more here? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway. So we're in a situation where the Bourbons are still doing very, very well. They're just a couple of points. They're 3 points away from victory. 2 of those points are in Hanover. One of them sitting here at Menin. They're sieging both of those. And it kind of feels like the Pragmatics are not going to be able to contest this effectively. They're not able to contest this effectively. The Prussians may be able... So the Prussians may be able to gain ground on Austria, especially if Austria moves down to try to take Vienna. That's probably the Pragmatics' best goal right now, is to take Vienna back. I'm going to have to count Austrian victory points. I think I charged them... Oh, no, that's right. It's 5 points either way. And the 3 points is the special case that was a one-time only victory point gain for having captured it. And now the Pragmatics can't get it anymore. That's kind of a weird situation, because whoever walks into those special places, Vienna, Berlin, whatever, there's another one somewhere, Turin, whoever walks into those and gains the victory points for them, they're theirs forever, which, okay, I sacked the city, that makes sense, but other players of the same alliance can't get those points, right? Which, I don't know. I just don't know. There are a few weird things. So, like, there's no real harm to the Austrians for not holding Vienna, except that it's worth a shit ton of victory points. That they have negative, that's no big deal, but that the Bourbons have positive. Also, the automatic victory doesn't distinguish between who did what and who does well within an alliance. So, unlike getting to a normal victory, you just both win equally. And you can make an argument here that Prussia is doing very poorly. Spain is doing nothing. Of course, that's France's fault. They're not playing cards to help Spain. France is doing all the work. They are the ones winning the war here. The French and the Bavarians are the ones who should probably walk away with most of the advantage. Prussia doesn't even hold all of Silesia. They do hold Breslau, which is important. But, Prussia and Spain are at 5 victory points. France is at 15. If we take a look at... Does the Grand Campaign have its own victory point chart? Yeah. So here we go. Here's the campaign victory point chart. If we looked at this, Prussia at 9 or less victory points is a loss. Okay? Spain at 5 is a substantive victory. France at 15 is a decisive victory. But no, they all just win in this case. Now, I guess you could do that little point count and see how well each one wins anyway and make an argument for that. But the game itself doesn't support that directly. I think it only makes sense. Honestly, I think the majority of the gains, I think Prussia with a loss might not get to keep Silesia, right? But France might want to accommodate them and give them something. But that, that entails certain diplomatic costs and whatever to the Prussians. The big winners here would have to be France and Bavaria, which might be overthrowing the empire and abdicating in favor of Charles. And the Spanish almost certainly will gain something for what they've done. I'm not quite sure what they've done. Like, they've gotten some points off of God knows what. Most of them are off of events. They got 1 point for taking Naples. Certainly they'd be allowed to keep Naples. I don't know what else they'd get. Maybe some reparations or something. Doesn't seem like enough to give them Gibraltar, or anything along those lines. Malta. I don't know how I think the English have Malta already. But yeah, anything Prussia gets would really be basically because they are losing the game, as it were, at this point, would basically be at the whim of the French. But what could the French gain right now? Well, I think their biggest thing is that they're giving power to Bavaria. They don't want to take these German states. You know, they're just occupying them for their war effort because Germany is like the battleground. They might make an argument of getting a couple of these fortresses here, but you know, they're winning so massively compared to how the English, well, how the pragmatics are doing and whatnot, and compared to their other allies, and have sort of the least claim to anything in Europe. I mean, they're not going to get Hanover out of it, right? You know, England's not going to surrender that to France. There's no right there. Colonial possessions would definitely be an opportunity, though, for, you know, even if they didn't gain something in terms of, like, you know, what you would see as an outcome, whatever. Wow, I'm getting wordy, even in the intro. But luckily, I'm running out of battery, and we don't want to play anymore right now. We don't want to play right now. We want to go watch videos or something. On 6 a.m. Remember when it was light out this time of day? What happened? Where'd my summer go? It felt like summer yesterday. I mean, it's beginning. I don't know if you can see. Anyway, for whatever reason, I feel like playing a little bit more. Oh, we'll see. Might mean one card. And we're here in the fall campaign segment. I fucked up. There shouldn't be a worn marker here. And actually, the Allies should have one less hit point. One less troop. And the Prussians, or sorry, the French under de Saxe should have one back. Why? Because I just drew the same card and I realized de Saxe didn't have to attack. He could have defended, right? This affects the attacker, not the person who moved in. So I've got to move another French point into there. I'm not going to worry about it too much. That would have been a major victory as well. That's actually kind of important because that means that's at 16, which means we're at 24 instead of 23. We still have to get to 26, so the game's not over. Kind of lucky there, but it is so important because I just drew that same card again, and I'm old Dessau is coming in, and I don't know what his real name is, Dessau, and he's caught this Austrian force at Leipzig and is going to battle them. They tried to withdraw and couldn't, but he's going to force them to defend or to attack. What was it? The major battle. I know it gives the French a victory point. Does it give or major victory? Let's see. Fuck. Come on, I should be able to find this. Victory in battle. There we go. Major victory. Okay, yeah. See, these are given such predominance that it makes these almost fade into the nothingness. It did not lose 25% or more. So I actually didn't get that victory point. That would have also resulted in a loss of monarchical will, which can be a big deal. Prussian will is down, not happy. Although I don't think there's any effect to them dropping. Maybe it's 0, but I don't even think so. I don't know. I'd have to look it up if it gets into the red. So yeah, I'll handle the battle. All right, so Dessau was able to move into Leipzig, defeat him there, and the Austrians decided not to leave a garrison. This is just Saxony, who cares, right? I do have Saxon troops left in the army of Lorraine back here, but there's no way to conquer Saxony unless there's cards, which maybe, say something like if you have Leipzig and Dresden, Saxony surrenders, you know. But I left a garrison here because I wanted the supply chain. I wouldn't need to. The fortress doesn't block supply in and of itself. I'm able to supply through the fortress, but I figure extend my my chain, and then attacked again here. Won again, this time with a infantry slaughter +2 DRM. This was to both sides. Not really a big deal. I forgot to roll any casualties. Okay. First Prussian. Oh, close. Second Prussian. First Austrian. Second Austrian. Okay. It's so unlikely. You got to roll a 12 to get a possible leader loss. And if you do, you got to roll another 12 to lose the main leader. So it's really, really unlikely you're going to lose, you know, one of your key leaders there. You might lose someone minor, though. He also took Dresden again. Now I'm in the rally segment, and I get rid of this warn marker, which is good because otherwise we'd be in a bit of hurt. And now Austria has painful choices. I mean, this army is bigger than everything around it, and if I leave the Saxons behind, it's not bad. The problem is, this thing being demoralized, I can't just pick it up. Well, actually I could. It's not very big. Huh. That's interesting. Like I could absorb it. So that's a definite concept in play. We're kind of not seeing a lot of action here in Italy. There are victory points in Italy. There's 2 points for Piacenza, 2 points for Turin. No, 1 point for Turin, sorry. But 2 points for capturing it that can't be taken away. So if the Spanish thought they had a good chance there, and they are a better army than either the Austrians, and I forgot to give the Prussians an additional +1, didn't I? Oh well, I don't think it made a difference. I thought the Austrian army had a 5 quality as well as the Prussians, but no. But the Spanish army is very good, and, well, yeah, it's just a little better than the Austrian. The Piedmontese aren't big enough to make a difference in the force composition. But I really want to save Vienna, and the guy who's down there isn't strong enough to do it. And I'm a fucking idiot. I had these 2 able subordinates in my hand. I looked for battle cards, but I don't look down here. I look at the top. Like, the way that I scan my cards is, I want to do this quickly, right? So I just flip through my cards, and I'm like, oh, no battle cards. Whatever it is that you're looking for interrupts battle card indication. Who cares about diplomatic, you know? Okay. That might have some, that affects some cards, but for the most part it's not that important. But whatever it is should be, you know, it's kind of funny. These 2 are diplomatic cards. This one is not. For no apparent reason. I'm guessing that's a typo, but very interesting. Yeah, I mean, oh well. Failure to be able to notice that battle card down here is of any importance. You know, it's definitely costing the Austrians. I could totally see that happening in a normal play. Just, you know, again, the presentation of the stuff sucks in a lot of ways. And this is one of them. How could they do this differently? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, because you want to have, you know, the segmentation of the 2 parts of the card. You could do it with like a divided card that way, but you'd have to make sure that the battle card portion was always in the same place. Yeah. So, given that they have interrupts up here, I would suggest divide the card this way, although that makes the typeface really difficult to cope with. Okay, divide it this way. And have the interrupts on this side, always have the battle card over here or something along that line. But, you know, you shouldn't have to look in the middle of a card to see what it is, to see whether or not you can use it in a particular circumstance. Those kind of important things, they have to be available to you for a quick scan. Not just when you're playing solo. I would, you know, I'm used to playing Magic once upon a time, long, long ago. I would just flip through and see, hey, what can I cast? And then I'd look at those and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty common to just look for a key piece of information in a normal location on the card. And if you're going to start fucking around with that shit, you've got to figure out a way to present that information in a consistent manner. With these particular cards, if you really wanted to divide it, the battle card's more important than diplomatic. You could have put the diplomatic on the bottom. And they're using all this space up with no text. That's brilliant, right? The problem there is preconditions and stuff like that. But I gotta say, the interrupts and the battle cards are the ones that are the most important that you'll be able to quickly scan for. The other cards you're playing on your turn. You have the time to look through your hand and think about it and everything. You don't have the time when, you know, you're watching somebody move or when you're engaged in battle or whatever. That's their turn. They're doing all the thinking and everything. You're just going to do a quick scan of your cards. So this was a bad design decision as far as I'm concerned. Do I take fault? Yeah, sure. I had seen those. I knew they were there. And then I forgot. And, you know, just fell to my normal, let's look for this thing where I'm used to seeing it. These guys are supposed to be here. I was wondering, wait, why was I worried about going through Maastricht? Yeah, something got moved when I was counting all the counters. Oh, I bet you there's a strength point that I moved on top of. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm trying to figure out what the fuck I want to do with my points, right? And I don't have all the numbers I want. I have twos. So here's what's really fucked up. I probably want to move Traun. He's a 1 point. Okay. I have a couple of 3-point cards, and this one is reasonable. That would allow me to like move Liechtenstein or Kavalovkov, one of those two. This I don't want to use up. Some of these twos, kind of don't want to use them up. So I think I'm going to be using a 3 card, but the problem is kind of, what do I do with it? Well, I think I move on Passau with these, even though it doesn't do me any good in terms of knocking the Bavarians out of the war. And I move these guys and maybe go beat up on Old Dessau if I can. Also not thrilled with conditional interrupts. And to just add insult to injury, leadership inertia. Austrian leadership inertia. That doesn't sound like something the Prussians invested in, right? This isn't something that they, like, if the Austrians are going to, basically what I'm doing here with this card is I'm going to be able to make a choice to play this to either end an activation of an Austrian, and I can't do it now because it's 1744 and I have the card for some reason, and end one Austrian activation or cancel an Austrian intercept attempt outside of Italy. So basically what it's saying is, I am trading either building troops or a depot or committing to a 3-point campaign for the Austrians doing nothing. What decision am I making here, right? This is something that should not be in my hand. It shouldn't be my choice. What it should be is either a die roll for movement, right? That just happens after a certain point. Like maybe you have a 1 in 6 chance of not being able to move every time you try to move an Austrian or something. That would probably be too painful, but I'm just saying it should not be something that the Prussians decide, yeah, you know what? You're not doing anything right now. You're just not. It's not something that I've invested in. Change the title, you know. You could make it something that has to do with, some kind of misinformation or something like that. You can at least argue that, yeah, I had to invest in that instead of in building more troops or conducting a campaign or whatever. I had to invest in an intelligence alpha for that. And you can do a hand-wavy argument to say that's what it really is. But it isn't what it is. What it is that the Austrian structure of their army had a tendency towards dragging their feet. And that should not be represented by a card that the Prussians have. It's not under their control. They had little or nothing to do with it. They had nothing to do with it. Anyway, whatever. And now I don't know if they have an interrupt or not. So, what I do is I scan quickly through. I see no interrupts. Okay, great. Well, actually, I see 2 interrupts, but I've looked at them both. Now, the truth of the matter is, if I have to do what I did with the Austrians, I have to spread the cards out completely, look at every single top and bottom, see if there's any bottoms, stuff like that. Much more complicated procedure. You shouldn't have to do that. I'm just, it's their turn. Let them do what they want. Anyway, I'm not going to interfere, obviously. Actually, the French could interfere, perhaps. Okay. Well, we can't just scan. We have to look at every card that has a bottom. This is an interrupt, which I can't play. So this is a really weird interrupt, right? It's an interrupt that's only playable immediately after you play another card, which is, again, just weird. But anyway, what was I going to do? I was going to move these guys first, and I'm going to get rid of my mixed force and drop the Saxons off. I don't know if I want to drop the Saxon leaders both off. In fact, either of them off. Let me try to explain what I did, and then what I went to go look for, and what I found that's not what I went to look for, but is of interest. Okay. Crown activated, pushed to here, picking up that other force. Could have gone after old Dessau, but I decided, screw it. Vienna's the prize here. So march down. I would have had to build a depot here if that's what I was planning on doing. So I did that. That might have made Dessau try to intercept, but he would have gotten his ass kicked. So no, he wouldn't. And gathered up all the Austrian armies. The army of Lorraine is actually in Lorraine now. The army of Italy is no longer on the board because I've got the Piedmontese army there. Swung around, chased him out of Vienna. He left a garrison there. That ended up honors of warring into Passau. And so we got the big points. That gives us, that greatly reduces the stress on us. We're now at 20 victory points for the Bourbons, and we're only at -5, which is feeling a lot better for the Austrians, right? We have to get to like 8 or 9, I think, though, to get the auto victory. So, I mean, we have to be doing really well with the Austrians. I'm done with Traun. I have 2 more points with this. And I can't move Chucky. This guy's he's too expensive, but it doesn't really matter. All my leaders are here, except for 2. So this guy could move at a cost of 2, but he's got a weak force compared to the Spanish, and I don't want to attack him, especially through the mountains. So now I'm left with, gosh, I don't know what piece I want to play at this point. I think the answer is none. But the question comes to mind, could I activate some other nation? I remember there were rules on that. I'm looking through CP and force activation to try to find it there. I looked in the geopolitics to try to find it there. I couldn't find it in either. Maybe it's in the fucking errata. I have no idea. But I really don't think that there's much I want to do. So, I mean, yeah, conceivably, no, I couldn't. I could move some Dutch or something like that. But there's really nothing that I'd want to do. So I think I'm burning the other 2 points. The question is, would I have thought about this and played a 1-point card with just Troun or a 2-point card? Well, here's the thing. Hesitation looks useful. I can fuck with the French and prevent them from doing something interesting. Don't want to play this, I want to use it. Don't want to play this, I want to use it. So this is the only card that I was willing to expend, or the cheapest card I was willing to expend. So, well, there it is. I get to move 1 force. But what was the interesting thing I found? Fuck. Now I forgot. I found something. Ah, yes. Okay. Non-allied... No. Once a power allies with the Pragmatics or Bourbon, further diplomacy events may not be played that affect it. It remains in its alliance unless it is conquered, i.e. all spaces in a fortress are enemy controlled, or its status is changed by the play of an event specifying such change. So I think if I take all of Bavaria, I knock them out of the war. I don't think that there's anything that really defines it all out very well. Like, I mean, presumably it wouldn't have any more troops left or whatever. This is not fleshed out, and it's not in the errata that I recall. I guess if you conquer a minor country, you flip its little counter over, and now it's available for diplomacy again. And of course, there are cards that could bring troops back in. If it's got troops on the board, I don't know what happens to them. Whether they get repatriated somewhere or something, you know? Like, I've got some fucking Bavarians over here. It feels like they'd kind of be allowed. But we got to make up rules for that shit if it happens. I think it's a pretty unlikely situation. But there is a way to knock Bavaria out of the war. It's an exceedingly expensive way, because I would have to have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 garrisons to force it to surrender. That feels really weird. Now, that's any power. So I think, Austria or France could be conquered, but much more reasonably, England could be conquered, or Prussia could be conquered. They're not very big countries. I don't know if Hanover could be conquered. I mean, that looks like a really easy thing to do. Is Hanover a power? This is all like, wow, what's up, man? This is weird. Hanover, the electorate is treated as a British territory for all purposes except it's not neutral. Okay, I don't think you can conquer Hanover. But some of these minors like Naples or whatever, I assume you could. Again, we'd have to look them up specifically. But it looks like the three Italian really minor countries are could be conquered. And I mean, look, nobody's going to conquer Austria or France, probably. I mean, Austria's not that huge. Well, yes, it is, because it's got stuff like this, right? And if you want to conquer England, you got to take Hanover, too. What happens if they get knocked out of the war? I don't know. I assume they become non-belligerent. It's going to be, you're going to have a hell of a time bringing them back in, but they can probably still affect stuff through card play. Okay, so that was the Austrians and the Prussians, and that was difficult enough that I do not want to do anymore. This depot here is kind of interesting because Traun has a fair chance of intercepting. Not great, but fair. I think he needs to roll a 5. I'd have to look it up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't intercept unless you break 6. Like a 0 leader can't intercept successfully. So, you know, the French could capture it. That would suck. But this seemed like such a valuable location. Now, I could have traced down to here, but if I did that, the French could have withdrawn to here and blocked me from actually making it from being in supply, which would have been problematic because I can't just throw a depot down. Like, I can throw a depot down at the beginning of my turn, and yes, I kind of cheat in how I do that, because the thought process of setting up your turn and then doing it is more than I can handle. I guess I would eventually be able to get used to it, but it's a very painful, you know, it's kind of like setting up your supply in OCS or whatever. It makes very little difference. If you know what pieces you're going to move and where they're going, it's not too hard a thing. The problem is if you want to maintain some sort of flexibility or whatever. And I had no need for that. So it wasn't like I was moving into here and depending on what Dessau does, I did something different. It's more that I can't formulate what my plan is, you know, in my own head, because things are too complicated and I'm just not comfortable enough with the system is what it comes down to. Anyway, the French turn should be interesting. We got a couple of sieges that I probably want to pursue, although my points are no longer what they used to be. And I got big bad Traun here. Prussia got stymied. I mean, not really, but Frederick not being able to move against Traun, Dessau taking Saxon territory, which is worthless. You know, it means if I take these things, they're only worth 3 points. Brussels is worth 1, you know. There's a lot I can take, but what did we say we were at? We're at 20 now. So we need like 6 more, and we're only sitting on 3. So it's much harder. And then we've got stuff like this. These poor Bavarians are like, you know, kind of lost right now. The French army of Germany is nowhere near the size of what Traun's put together. He has put together a massive army. Although that may not be particularly useful because it's like only 36, 37, 38, 46 strength points. Which it might mean an extra casualty, but it's like, yeah. It's not, if it was still in the 30s, it would have been really shitty to have that force. I'm having a hard time walking away, not because I want to play the game, but because I want to chatter. So I guess I better shut this off and get to whatever it is that I'm going to do. Which is probably, it's not actually getting light. Except with that. I guess that was a false dawn before. We're getting the real one here now. Yeah. Oh well. Anyway. Tell that loneliness is seeping in, which means it's time to brush my teeth and go to sleep. Interesting effect with the Spaniards is I keep thinking about this before I want to walk away. But if you're playing a multiplayer game of this, a four-player game, I don't think there's a way you can play it in three. I guess, I don't know. The French are sitting on, they have the points to allow the Spaniards to do stuff. But even me playing, as one person, I'm finding my attention is directed to doing stuff with my French. I have a lot of French troops and everything. I gotta keep an eye on it though, because there are points here in Italy, points that I ought to be paying attention to. There are one-time only points in Milan and in Turin that I ought to be oh no, Milan is not like that. Even though it's got two numbers. One of them is points for Spain, one of them is points for everyone else. Okay. But still, that means Milan's worth 2 extra points if I can garrison it, which, given that it's not a fortress, is kind of painful. But, yeah. There's a reason to pay attention down here. And playing it as a 2-player game, you've got a certain amount of, you want to balance the victory conditions, because the victory conditions in 2 require that you kind of win with multiple powers or something like that. I didn't really pay too much attention to that because I'm playing the 4-player game. But France has to grant Spain the right to do stuff. Now, with the automatic Bourbon victory, I don't know what to say about that, right? Like, if I give Spain more points and they get more than I got, I don't know how to evaluate that, right? Is the automatic victory just as good no matter what? That's a question that's just in the back of my head in terms of but one thing that it does represent, I think, and is by giving France the power to give Spain the capability to move, it kind of creates the kind of, what did they call it? Whatever that Prussian card was, inertia. The kind of inertia to the leadership of the Spanish troops in a way without, being unreasonable, in my opinion. Yes, France has the ability to push the Spaniards to do more or whatever, but they have to kind of expend the effort to do it, to push the Spaniards onward. So it's it's just weird, but I think it works better to me than the idea of putting the inertia here. Now, obviously, Spanish inertia is presumably going to be a lot worse than the Austrians. The Austrians generally fought the war relatively well. But, yeah, I actually really like that solution in terms of what it's doing, because, I could, as this French, I could plan for, hey, Spain, I can give you 2 command points to do something with him. And, I can suggest what he does, but he doesn't have to do it, right? He can go do something else, something weird. But yeah, he's probably going to take as many points as he can. But it's an interesting thing, and it's an extra forces that aren't mine. They're better than mine, but they don't count towards my victory. Except under certain conditions, maybe who knows. But at this point, I'm looking at, let's get the auto victory so we can stop playing this stupid thing. And the Austrians are helping by not noticing that they have interrupt cards. I ought to put not interrupt, battle cards. I had to put, they have an interrupt, this hesitation. I had to put this face up because the French are going next, and I will probably not remember that otherwise. That's an interesting card because I can prevent them from doing valuable stuff somewhere. Not sure where I want to. You know, it's like it's really hard to make your decisions in this game. 1745 is when they have to hold Antwerp, and that's not far from now. So that may be what I hesitate on, because he's only got a 0 siege there. There's a fair chance that I could prevent that siege from falling, or the city from falling, which might be my best move. These guys are afraid of me. What the hell are they going to do? You know, they could run up and try to attack Prague or something, bank some more points. But again, we're not close anymore because we covered Vienna. The Prussians don't get another go this season. You know, they went already, and they kind of got bottled up. Yeah. Spain is actually the worrisome thing, because they have points they can get if they take this. Unfortunately for them, Don Felipe is not all that effective. He's not terrible, but he only gets 6 activation points, which kind of sucks. Alright, I woke up to a rainy ass day, so I thought, but it turns out no, it's just Wednesday. Alright, apologies to anyone who is on Facebook and has already seen my, I thought it was funny. So yeah, we're gonna do the French. Woke up a little late. It's 1 p.m. Woke up at like 1 p.m. It's or a little later than that. It's 1:30 or so. It's probably about 2 by now. Played a tiny bit of Raid, but there's no real reason. But there's also no reason for me to change. You know, to try to fight this. This is a good time for me. This is a good sleeping schedule for me going into Friday. It's so fucked up because, you know, I get home at like, I don't know, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., you know, whatever, and on Friday. And and I'm also exhausted and everything, so I sleep long, you know, on Saturday and Sunday, and then I try to fight to be awake during the day until about this point in the week, at which point I say, okay, screw it. I was actually getting up earlier the last couple days, but I don't know what happened. The darkness of the day is part of it. It's hard to wake up to that, and this is a more natural time for me to be awake. Okay, let's get to the French. It's hard. The cards don't line up well with your leadership points. So I mean, they work well if you have a certain mix of leaders. It might work out. But I have both Saxe and Belle-Ile available, and they're both 1-point leaders, and I need both of them to go. Part of the problem is all my cards are 3-point cards. So that's 2 points. There's not a third point I want to spend, I think, anywhere. I could do an administrative march with these guys, but I kind of like them holding Linz. And maybe Frederick can save me. I mean, I want those 2 victory points are valuable to me. But notably, I got 2 more points I'd love to spend here. Now, I have 1 card that could help me, a major campaign. This would allow me 5 bonus activations if I play it as an event, lose the card, but only of French Bavarian forces outside the Italian theater. Not going to help me with those French, with those Spaniards. It would allow me to move this force or something, but Yeah, so I guess I'm going to just start conducting the sieges. We'll see. We have an interrupt over here. They may want to play this against, I don't know which one. When do we get that victory point penalty? Good God. Oh, it's not a victory point penalty. It's a troop penalty. Yeah, this might be the only time. I think the Austrians are going to play a hesitation over on this. So he only gets one crack at the siege. He perhaps foolishly chose to move to Saxe first. He succeeded in the siege. Honors of War went over here to the Allied army. I moved up and I took myself Münster. Put a garrison there. But I got kind of a problem. I'm afraid of this thing. It's not that likely I'm going to get hit, but I think I'm going to try to avoid it. What is my supply situation? It's not great. I may not even want Münster. I should probably take it back if that's the case, but I may be better off launching from Cologne or something like that, which I can get off of my supply route. So, I don't know. You know, I could make a move and try to take, grab this depot, but it's not going to last, right? And unless I have a winter campaign, which I think I do not, hard to remember these things, I do not, it's really not going to serve me any damn purpose. Yeah, I'm gonna forego having sieged this. I know I made the roll already, but I find myself really struggling with the it's the interception rolls, right? It's just they just cause me issues mentally. I'm always, and the bubble maps. It's been a while since I've dealt with one, I think. Vijayanagra had one, didn't it? Yeah, it did. But I'm not maneuvering. This is a game of maneuver, a war of maneuver here. Instead, we moved to Lemuria, to Namur instead. I went by the straightest route, just boom, boom, boom. I've got a point left, which would allow me to not move here. Luxembourg is kind of like, I guess the forests or something are supposed to be represented there. I can move to Mons. I can't, I can move to Mons and begin a siege. Without a winter campaign, that doesn't really do me anything, and I don't know. Maybe it puts me a bit off balance. I kind of like the idea. I don't know, when I go to winter quarters, I can go into France, and then I'd be reinforceable more easily. That might not be a bad idea. I kind of like the idea of having, these fortresses in Germany, although they do eat up a fair amount of my troops. So, getting out of Mainz and or Cologne might make some sense to me. Whatever. And I can do that with admin movement. And I could actually do it now, perhaps. The other... I still have that to resolve. But if I move into here, then my closest place for going into winter quarters is actually Maubeuge, which puts me in France. And again, there's advantages to that. So I kind of think I want to do that. The other option I had is I could move against Charles. Now, I only have one movement point, but it wouldn't have to be a major battle. I could move in there, and because Lorraine is less than twice my size. Are they left? Do I have 5 times? I don't think I have 20 points. No, I'm at like 17. If I had 20 points, I could just overrun them. which means they pretty much have to get out of Dodge. Of course, they could just withdraw into the fortress if they can't withdraw, which wouldn't really do me much good, but I would have them bottled up for a turn. At 2-1, I can cause them a casualty and take a casualty myself, which might not be a bad deal. And the only way that they wouldn't be that way is if they took a withdrawal or they fall into the fortification. It doesn't put me in as flexible a place for withdrawing to join, to be part of France, where I can get reinforcements. So I think I'll go. I think I'll go into Mons. And I remembered the Austrian face-up card. They played their hesitation on Belle Ile. He succeeded, though, on one die roll in taking Antwerp, and that's the important thing. And part of why Austria wanted to do that. That also took up a victory point from Austria. No big deal there. Gave one to France. Big deal there. I'm up to 23 at this point. And that puts us... This looks like a Prussian card. Looks darker. I don't know. That puts us on the Brits. I'll try to do one more card. It's so hard when I do a card like that. It wasn't even a very big one, not a whole hell of a lot happened, but the thinking involved in moving your pieces in this is really kind of exhausting to me. So, the Brits have a single card to play. This is a useless card otherwise for me. And it's 3 points. 3 points seems fine. I don't have any winter campaigns or anything, so this is the last thing I get to do. And I looked at my cards, and yeah, I could play I could move Lord Stair. I could do an administrative move to get some stuff into Europe. But I think the main thing I want to do is I want to move the Allied army to do something. Few some things I could do. I could go fight against the Sacs. That would be an interesting goal. But I'd have to move through here, and both of those would allow Belle Ile to intercept me. Belle Ile has a big force. He's a good leader. It doesn't sound like a good choice. But that's kind of the problem. I might want to join Charles and do something. I can't really. It could come down and follow the French up this way, which would get me towards that same position more effectively. Interesting. Doesn't really gain me much. Just taking Cologne away from the French is the important thing. I don't really need it unless I'm expanding this way. But there's another option. I could go back for Hanover. Now, Hanover's worth 2 victory points, but which would help rein the French in. I'm really having trouble because my allied force here just does not feel like it's a good match for the French army in the Netherlands. The Dutch would fucking throw a fit in this situation. They couldn't stop the Brits from marching away, but they would not send their army with the Brits, and yeah, I'm pretty damn sure of that. But there's no political rules for that I'm aware of. It's an intriguing option. How many points am I losing here if I just sort of give up the Netherlands as a whole? I don't know. But it would allow the Brits to come in against the weaker Prussians up there. And that takes victory points away from the Prussians, which takes them away from the Bourbon alliance as a whole. Of course, this is delaying the existence of that, kind of maybe delays the The French army, I wanted to add something to it. I don't know. I don't know what to do. That's so often the case in this game. If I want to attack this, I would have to make a couple of... there's really one thing I would have to do. I would have to move this depot. No big deal. I'm allowed to move it right now. I decided to shift a little south and try to wipe out some of de Sax's troops. The idea of cutting the French troop supply seems appealing. I got another 20 coming in here. Of course, Austria keeps producing troops. Maybe they can come to our aid. Yeah, they look like they have enough problems. So, although the Prussian army is getting whittled down and it doesn't have a good source of troops, which is why they probably, want one of those peace treaty type things. But the Austrians aren't. It's up to the Austrians to play the peace treaties, right? The Prussians can't play a card that forces the Austrians out of the war. And losing Austria doesn't really affect my capability to build forces. So yeah, I was hoping to catch the Sax here and beat him up, but because I outnumber him. But we didn't get anywhere, and we actually got this siege +3 on Cologne, which really sucks. We're going to have to leave there for winter quarters, and we basically got nowhere this turn. Which, yeah, I actually like that in terms of... I like when games screw you over. I think I'm in supply and everything everywhere. That's going to put me to the event card segment. I'm not ready to face that yet. It's not... I could. The campaign was the hard part, and I'm kind of more awake and aware. But I think I want to go watch some videos first. I'll be back down. Events, Prussia was out. Austria's playing Bestuchev's Scheming, which is not a play only, but the Chertow's something folly, I think it was, is in place. That allowed me to move the Russians. I'm just one away at this point. Now, I would have loved to have played. So I've got a ton of Russian cards here. They bring lots of troops in against Frederick, and the two empresses. But it's late 1745 or later if Russian influence is 4 or more, and that's where I'm set up. I can't play this yet. Late winter 1745. So it's going to be a year before I can play this card, which will almost certainly bring the Russians into play. It's kind of weird. If it's late 45, at 4 or more, I think it automatically throws them in. But there's this whole die roll mechanism in there, which I guess only applies in the other case. Anyway. Let's get it to the French. And for the French and Brits, I still have to write this one down. The French played the diplomatic triumph. Charles VII is crowned. There doesn't appear to be anything that prevents me from doing this, even though Francis has been crowned. That makes sense to me. There were times when, there were multiple emperors. The thing that doesn't make sense is that there's no mechanism for triggering the non-will and non-victory point effects of conquering Bavaria. Bavaria will not be as easy to conquer. This generated a victory point for the French and took one away from the Austrians and Brits, and also played around with the morale levels. I think these are the French. And then the Brits countered with their own victory point card. Okay. So the Piedmontese and Brits each got a victory point, and these are event victory points, so they move both markers. The Prussians lost one, again by event. Piedmont and Austria are allied. I don't know that they weren't. Flip marker. Bourbon forces may now... I think this means that Austria can play cards to move Piedmontese forces, so they become something else. Bourbon forces may now transit neutral Genoa at no penalty. transfer 1 PE infantry. This guy went to Piacenza. He came out of here. Not the best of choices, but I just don't have many infantry, and I don't want to give up the fortresses for easily. Could have given this away. This one's not worth any victory points, but it's a major fortress. And my view here is, if the French want to go in this way, they've got to deal with the mountain passes, and this thing would just be overrun. So it doesn't really serve much purpose. Okay, Piacenza, sorry. Hey, we just played a game on that. Is now Piedmontese possession. I don't know how I mark that. I guess I could put this force in Piacenza itself as an extra unit to reflect the garrison there. But it's just a weird thing. It was Austrian. It's being granted to the Piedmontese as, you know, the argument for why they get into the war. And switch Piedmont's and Austria's victory points. So it was worth 2. Piedmont got 2 additional victory points here, and Austria lost 2 more for bringing them in this way. Okay. There's something kind of confusing about all this because there aren't any control markers or anything like that. It's going to be hard to remember that this is Piedmont's. Austria can't take it from them. The only place it mentions anything about this is on this card, which goes back in the deck, right? And then also allows the French to start the 45. They've already started the 45. What's up with that? Oh shit, I played another French card. I played another French card, didn't I? I'm never going to remember. I played another 3-point French card, which impacts this. Okay, we have to take care of that. That should have happened back on the French turn. Not much has happened since then. But here's the thing. I think there's 2 routes to get to the 45, and the Treaty of Worms is necessary for one of them, but not the other. And it's just, I don't know. Okay, let's see what happens. We roll a die. Let's see what the die roll does to us. We get a 1. Charles Stuart is removed from play, killed, and the 45 marker can be advanced no further. Okay, well, that's it. And I don't know that we need the 45. I don't know that we need this chart anymore. I might move this and get another counter tray on the board to make life easier for me. I gotta write this sucker down, and because I'm short on table spaces is the only reason for all that. And yeah, I guess that's it. I'll be back in a moment because then we have to do the FOW. Maybe in the errata, I'm not going to run up and check. This is marked as a one-time event, not as a discard or anything like this. If I didn't play this relatively soon, I would be taking some victory point penalties, which would suck. But it's not on here. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Wait, we've got this Piedmont one. Charles's Triumph, Treaty of Worms. Yeah, it's over here. I wish they just did it by deck instead. Anyway, yeah, this is a Piedmontese card, so it wouldn't be on there. All right. We know that the FOW is the Fortunes of Power capability. This is 1744. Kevin Hewler dies. I guess I just take him out of the game. The Army of Italy. Emmanuel's not in control. This is an Austrian force, so I've got some butthead in control right now. Okay. Whatever. Charles of Bavaria dies. On a 1. What does that mean? Well, this is kind of interesting because I just crowned him, I think. There's no counter for him or anything. Let's see if we can kill him off. I don't know what it means. Maybe there's cards that are affected by whether he's alive or not. He's still alive. He'll die next turn, or next year, automatically. And then inflation. British and French players must discard 83 cards, but that's only on a 1. And then we got a whole bunch of nasty die roll things here. That does not happen. So very little happened on this. Austria lost a leader. That's going to put them in a problematic situation because Emmanuel is not an Austrian leader and cannot command majority Austrian force, which probably means that I'll have to do some kind of administrative movement or something from Tron to shift him. I have to look to see about that. I don't think there's an easy way. Like, there's a free admin movement, but I don't think there's an easy way to get a commander down there. Tron definitely has enough commanders here. And I guess that's about it. The end phase, we got no CHs on the board. No guerrillas, so we'll be hitting down here in the winter quarters phase. Well, why don't we get started with that? Alright, shouldn't be too problematic. The next thing was the saved resources. Let me try to go over them relatively quickly. Prussia gets to hold cards. I held a couple of good battle cards for this, but I did produce myself 4 more troops. I'm low on troops. Seems like an important thing to build just infantry. I have depots. Austria also produced a couple of troops, kept cards that I'm going to play. France kept 1 card that I'm going to play as an event. Spent the rest of my cards. What is that? That's a sortie. Okay. But I used 1 big 3-point card for a fleet, and that left me only 1 card that I wanted to discard. So all I got was an infantry. It would take 2 to get a depot. I would have liked to have gotten another depot. I want that flexibility. But I can build it during an initial supply phase. It's just that would be cards from next turn. I get a lot of troops from my treasure fleet, so getting a 1-point troop isn't terribly helpful to me. To the English, they spent a single card to get a depot. They're going to play these, I guess. Yeah. Actually, I can't even play this. I'll discard this as well for a troop. I'm not strong on troops either, but the English, like, it doesn't feel like building troops is sort of their main thing. Although I do want to keep the Allied army to be mainly British. You can take attrition losses on Dutch and stuff like that. Anyway, they're out of fleet counters. Now, the game does not say that fleet counters are limited by countermix or not, but it also doesn't give you large enough numbers. So these 4s have 3s on the back, the 2s have 2s on the back, the 6 has a 5 on the back. I got nothing bigger. I can't make any change or do anything to try to rearrange it. I don't know, but the French have more fleet counters than the Brits do. Like, I got another 2 here. Right now, with this extra 2, I'm going to have 8, 10, 12. That's going to put me within 2. I can actually even myself up to the British force. The thing is, the British force is going to be better led, so it's going to beat me. And historically, this was a period where the French fleet actually kind of managed to reach a sort of parity with the English. So I kind of feel like countermix makes sense, because otherwise I would have just, you know, built another fleet over there and built that other fleet, and I just keep throwing counters down. So I'm happier with it not being that kind of continual growth. I'm not sure what was intended there. That puts us in the winter stage. I don't think anybody has any cards. I'll flip through real quick and get them. The early winter. So that puts us to the event card phase. This is actually the final event card phase. I kind of screwed up and held 2 cards with someone, the Austrians. But I do want both these cards. I'm going to play the 2 Empresses. That moves this here, and I think it means that Russia has now allied with us. Doesn't give me any troops or anything. There's this whole thing with the die roll, but that doesn't matter. And this just goes back in the deck, so that's kind of cool. After Austria, France held a card. What are they doing? Genoa signs Treaty of Aranjuez. Play after Treaty of Worms or Summer 1744. It's both of those. Genoa allies with the Bourbons. Place 5 Genoese infantry in any Genoa space. Put 2 Genoese strength points in the French spring reinforcement box. Well, we'll do that. It's a one-time, so I gotta write it somewhere. So the final, they kind of screwed up. They had a card that they could have brought troops in with. You know, instead of British reinforcements, I could be bringing Piedmontese in, I think. Oh. Anyway, I end up stuck with a card that would have allowed me to move the Russian marker forward. Miscommunication between them and Austria. Players, you know, often are like stuck looking at their own hands and everything. Oh well, too bad. And that gets me to the end phase. And that brings us to 1745. Hey, we're just cooking right along this turn, or this, this video, whatever. Pretty impressive. I think I had all my fussing out on that big, 3.5 hour video for 1744 early. I think I just finished 1744. And we can put this video up, can't we? I think so. Oh. Do I want to do the New Year stuff? Shit, I don't know. See, here's part of the problem. This guy is sitting on a box. Sure, if I remove it, I see, but if I just scoop up counters without thinking about it, seeing those dashed lines, I might not do it because it's not set aside in any reasonable way. Yeah, I think we'll push the late winter into here. That'll shorten the 1745 video. So we're slipping into 45 a little. We just haven't done much in this one. So here's the interesting thing. I think I see where we get here. Who knows? And who knows what it means, right? So, all right. I went through, nobody had any cards left, right, that they want to play. Well, that they're able to play. Depot removal, I removed all the depots. Great, fine, great. And then we get to the Holy Roman Emperor status phase. For the first time, award 1 victory point to France if Charles VII is emperor. I crowned him emperor. I look over here. First of all, nothing gets rid of the empire here. I think Charles VII will die very shortly, but Francis is crowned. So Francis... Charles VII must be dead. Wow, this is just fucked up. Okay. So, Francis can't become emperor until Charles dies, which makes sense if he was legitimately elected. But he was not legitimately elected. We got jumped here early. I was able to play the Crown Charles card because there was no restriction that says you can't do that. I think that's an error. I'm not going to give the French the victory point for this. But I am going to sit with the effects of that card. I guess. I don't know. Like, I really just don't fucking know. You know, do we have 2 emperors at this point? Has Francis, like... Sure, that's what we got. That's what the rules say. because Charles is emperor right now. He's not dead. He will die next turn. But that means award 1 victory point to France. You know why? Because it makes the game more likely to be short. It could end in a French victory. All right, let's see if it did. 17, 21, 24, not quite. Oops. Oh well. We're still a couple of short. But that, you know, again, there's something that's not defined here. What should it be? It should be that if Francis becomes emperor, Charles VII can no longer, Charles of Bavaria can no longer be made emperor. But I can kind of see precedents for when there were multiple emperors. So I'm like, okay, I'm willing to accept that, you know, that the Austrians got directly here because the French failed to play their card. That's according to rules for the time, for the period. It doesn't, Charles doesn't have to be dead for that to happen. I'm going to be strict with it, just like I'm being strict with the Bavarians. Like, ideally, I would think that Bavaria would surrender from the war if they started getting their ass kicked and they're no longer fighting for the empire. But there's nothing of that nature either. So, whatevers. I don't care. Yeah. We'll follow the rules strictly and try to make up what happened. Okay, so that gives the French the victory point. End phase, nothing exciting happens there. And we will go up to the reinforcement segment. All right, getting to spring is getting a little too extreme. So I'm going to load this one up and call it 1744 B. But we may be able to push through an entire year on one video if we're careful. That 1744A just took me so fucking long. And this is going to take me a while again, because you have your whole fresh deck coming in, or a whole fresh hand of cards coming in, and you got to puzzle over all that and everything. By the time I got to the fall campaign season, there weren't a lot of cards left. And some of the ones that were oops, I fucked up and didn't notice that the Austrian card had, you know, something on the bottom that I could use because of the way I scanned to see if I have a battle card available. And I think those are the only cards that do that, but I don't know. Maybe in the late deck there's some more. Who knows? But it's obnoxious, and I don't know. You know, the way they could do it, one thing they could do is to say, well, first of all, diplomatic and battle cards should not be in the same place, or if they are, they should have given a little bit of space. And what they should have done is put battle card up here, maybe in parentheses to say it's the bottom card or something like that. Some kind of indication. But people need to be able to scan their cards quickly. They should not have to look in the middle of the card to see whether or not they can play it outside their turn. That I'm very, very insistent on. So, like, yeah, I totally feel like, and, you know, too bad the Austrian army didn't do as well as it could have. Did it fight a battle? Yeah, I think it did. I don't know. I can't really remember. It was kind of afraid to. And then, you know, it was basically like a matter of force. But I think I fought one against Frederick where I could have used those cards. Maybe I fought 2 against Frederick. I don't know. All right, let's send this up after I swap batteries. It's kind of funny. Before I send it up, I directed someone. Someone was asking about, hey, I was thinking about Clash of Monarchs, but seeing you play this, how was that, you know, I'm just afraid of it, because same designer, same kind of system and everything, in a lot of ways. Well, so I went back to look at I went back to give an an indication of where I did my videos of my thoughts on Clash of Monarchs at the time. And then I thought, I don't really remember how much I did, how much I did like it on that first playthrough. I know that I played it again, not on video, and I liked it even better. But some of that may be replaying a game. With this, I'm having a lot more struggle than I did with Clash of Monarchs. There's no question of that. And, I mean, look, this game is a mess. Clash of Monarchs was a complete and effective game. The other issues that I'm having with this, I might have now if I was facing Clash of Monarchs for the first time, and I might have had some of them then. But I liked, my overall impression was pretty positive on Clash of Monarchs. On this, it's much more negative. And some of me kind of wants to set up Clash of Monarchs and play a little bit of it and see if I have as much pain as I'm doing with this. Some of me doesn't want to because I've already covered Clash of Monarchs and I've played it again since not long after. But what was really kind of exciting to me was opening up the video and, all right, I'm showing a little bit of age at that point, but not much at all. And my hair is dark. It's not the gray that it is now. I have this luxurious mustachio. And I'm just like, holy shit. I remember at that time thinking, wow, I was showing age. Because, I could see some creases on my around my mouth, on my face and whatnot. And it's just, it kind of sinks in how long I've been doing these fuckers for. That's nearly 15 years ago now, right? It's like 13, 14, somewhere in there. And it's like, holy crap, man. I didn't realize, back then, we're talking about, I'm in Phoenix. I've been in Phoenix for a couple of years. When I went to grad school, I was like the old man, right? I was the oldest student there by far because, I basically started at 35, 36, whatever. And it's just weird how much time, how much life, all that has kind of passed. And how much it's sort of degenerated me in a lot of ways. I mean, that was a person who was going to work every day, and had hopes. I don't remember. Clash of Monarchs was either, before my wife moved to live with me or soon after. I think it was actually before, during the, I picked up the camera. I remember going with her and getting the camera, and then my little couple of little knives, one of which I still have, and the other one I lost somewhere for my pipes. But it's just, it feels like now looking back and seeing the effect, how much younger I looked then. And at that point, I knew, I was already thinking I was old and everything. And now, goddamn, I'm old, But it's like, shit, I'm gonna get older if I don't finish this shit up soon. I don't know. Anyway. See, sometimes I'm in a bubbly mood. Still wanting death, but I'm in a bubbly mood about it.